Good day, and welcome to the first episode of Journey to C.A.R.E.S with Dr. Lisa Chen, and we have a wonderful guest, and she happens to be Renee Sacco, who is our Director of Literacy. And I'd like to introduce to you, Renee. So, Renee, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and just how many years have you been in doing this amazing literacy work? And your just years of experience, please.
Sure. So I've been in Burlington for 18 years. Before that, I was in Chelsea for 10 years. I was a former fourth grade teacher and a reading specialist. When I came to Burlington, I was a reading specialist at Fox Hill for a few years before taking on a literacy coaching job here at Central Office. And I've been doing the Director of Literacy job for the past couple of years now.
Wow, we're just such an honor to talk with you.
Thanks.
And thank you for all the experiences that you bring to our students and to our staff. Can you tell me a little bit about the reading program here at Burlington Public Schools?
Sure. We use different curriculums at this point in time. Over the past few years, we've continued to add to the curriculum to ensure that we are meeting the needs of all students all the time. So we use C.A.R.E.S, which is a phonological awareness program. We use that in K1 and in some second grades. We use Foundations, which is a phonics program, phonics and fluency program. We use that from kindergarten through third grade. And we also use a lot of, for our reading comprehension strategies, we use a lot of Keys to Literacy comprehension programs, and that actually is used from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade.
And I know that right now you're actually giving quite a bit of professional development to our teachers. And will you share with us, because I know that we've been doing the Keys to Literacy for a while now.
Yeah.
And I know that from what I can understand, it's been with us for a while and teachers have been implementing it. And I think that for the most part, from what I'm hearing, this is something that they really enjoy, and there's a whole bunch of teachers involved. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. Many years ago at this point, over 10 years ago, we had a group of teachers actually attend, a group of middle and high school teachers attend a KTL, Keys to Literacy training, comprehension training, and they all were very impressed by the routines and strategies that Keys to Literacy offers. Keys to Literacy is not a curriculum program, but they are routines that can be added to your curriculum, your already standing curriculum. So it actually started as a middle and high school teacher initiative, and we brought it slowly into middle and high school, and then we rolled it down to elementary school. So at this point, for comprehension, all of our teachers, K through 12, are trained in Keys to Literacy comprehension. And we do writing, the writing routines from Keys to Literacy in grades 6 through 12. So we've been doing a lot of writing in the middle school at this point in time, writing training, writing follow-up. So Keys to Literacy is a great program, but it really works because we consistently have follow-up professional development. And so what teachers don't appreciate is the drive-by professional development, where there's one day and they never hear about it again. And Keys to Literacy is not like that. So we think it's successful because we had Keys to Literacy coaches at one point. We have the follow-up constantly every year with different grade levels in different schools. And I think that because it's always on the forefront of people's minds, it enables them to be more successful in teaching the strategies to children and to students.
Excellent. And I know one of the things that you're doing right now is, I believe that you'd shared with me that you're visiting all of the elementary schools. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing and what pieces of information that you are sharing with the teachers in your visits, please?
Sure. So one of the things we're talking about with each grade level is some science of reading information. We have a lot of the components of science of reading, which is research. So science of reading is not a program, it's research that's been done over many, many, many years that is basically telling us that some of the strategies that we used to use, we shouldn't be using anymore, and some of the strategies that we've always used are still valid and reliable. So the biggest takeaway is that students learn best through a specific scope and sequence in a structured phonics program. And we've had Foundations for many years, and so we feel like we have a pretty solid phonics program for our students to learn to read. There are components that we've had to add. So we added the C.A.R.E.S for phonological awareness. We've added mentor text to grades K through 5. We've added at least 6 to every grade level, and that's to bring up the level of text complexity to allow students at all levels to work with a complex level text and to actually use it and teachers use it to teach different strategies and craft lessons for writing and things like that.
And I believe that also, especially at the elementary level, there are assessments that are common that you also use as benchmarks, and at the same time you hold these amazing data meetings. Can you share a little bit about that with us, please?
Sure. So when Dr. Conti came to Burlington many years ago, we implemented a block schedule for elementary school because we weren't getting enough reading and writing time, which there never seems to be enough, if you ask me. But we also started having data meetings, and what we implemented at that point was benchmark assessments. So we use I-Ready as a benchmark, I-Ready, which from Curriculum Associates for grades 1 through 5. And we use the DIBELS in kindergarten. And they have both approved dyslexia, the dyslexic guidelines, they're both approved screeners through the dyslexic guidelines. So we're meeting the guidelines as well as helping our students. So basically, we do that 3 times a year. So beginning, middle, and end of the year.
And tell me about these data meetings, because I know that part of the reason for these data meetings is to ensure that we have a very robust reading program and that students, for instance, who need interventions get them. So what does that look like, and who are in these data meetings?
Yeah, so part of the RTI or MTSS process is to create data meetings, district data meetings at each school, at each elementary school right now. There are many people involved. It's not just reading, it's reading and math, and we actually do a little bit of social emotional well-being as well. So our people involved are the district people, so sometimes the superintendent, sometimes the assistant superintendent, the special ed director, the social emotional director, the ELL director, myself, math coach, principal, reading specialists, school psychologists, guidance counselors. There are ELL teachers, special ed teachers. We involve everybody. It's a true team approach to looking at data. And the district people are there to ensure that there is consistency across the schools. So we look at each school's data and each individual child's data, and we determine whether or not they would need intervention in reading or math based on the benchmark assessments that we give in reading and math. And we determine what skill or area of focus they will receive that intervention in. And then they receive that intervention for five times a week for about 30 minutes. And they do that for, we progress monitor them frequently throughout that time and during intervention block, and then we like to hopefully release them back from what we call intervention block tier 2 back to tier 1, which is their core curriculum. And sometimes students don't make enough progress or appropriate progress, and we would move them to tier 3 in problem solving meetings.
In which probably these students are receiving a little bit more intensive supports and much more times in the day in which they would receive more reading supports from various folks, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So tier 1 is our core curriculum, so that's 90 minutes of ELA block. Everybody gets core curriculum. If you're a tier 2 kid or an intervention student, you might receive, you do receive your core 90 minutes plus an additional 30 minutes of intervention. And if you need some tier 3 support, you would get your 90 minutes of core, your 30 minutes of intervention, as well as 60 to 75 more minutes a week of smaller group or one-on-one instruction, all very focused.
And I believe that this year, coming down the pipeline, especially for our kindergarten parents, right, as required now by the state, is that we'll be sending them some reports about assessments, right? And these are assessments that we've always been giving to our kindergarten students, but this year our parents will have them. Can you tell us a little bit about these assessments and when parents are going to be receiving them? And thank you. Yeah.
So we've always sent the I-Ready parent report home for grades 1 through 5. And so parents are used to receiving that report. For kindergarten, you're right, it's new this year. We've been using DIBELS, the DIBELS assessment, in our kindergartens since I came to Burlington 18 years ago. So it's not anything that hasn't been being given to students before. It's a one-on-one assessment. Teachers have an iPad where they score and assess. Students just have a piece of paper or sometimes nothing in front of them, depending on the subtest. So in kindergarten, there are 2 subtests that all children receive.
And I believe you had said to me they're about 1 minute each.
Each subtest is 1 minute long, so it can take a total of 3 minutes to 5 minutes per child to give. The 2 subtests that they get for sure are letter naming identification, which is a rapid automatized naming, which is another dyslexia guideline mandate. And then they also receive phoneme segmentation fluency. So depending on how the students do in those 2 scores, it could possibly open up 2 other assessments. And that would be nonsense word fluency, where they're reading or telling us the sounds of nonsense words. And in that one, they get 2 different scores. It's 1 test, but they get 2 scores. And then word reading fluency, which is literally like a sight word list.
And I would think that these tests are important so that they can provide us with a baseline. Is that the reason why we would give something like this?
Absolutely. And in kindergarten, they haven't been exposed to kindergarten curriculum yet. When we give the first assessment, it's September. They're all done. They've actually all been done already for September. So they haven't received any kindergarten instruction. So there are many children who we get a baseline, and after some exposure to some kindergarten curriculum, we can progress monitor them, and they've made significant progress and can be sort of happy, and we can be happy that they're going to get what they need in the core curriculum.
So like if I were a parent, right?
Yeah.
And I know that this is coming down the pipeline and we're working on just some information to give, especially to our kindergarten parents, right? It would be the norm, for instance, because the kindergarten student has not received the curriculum, because it's a baseline assessment, for them to, because I know there's different colors of how they score, yes, for them either to score either in the yellow or red, right? That's something normal, correct?
It's very normal. It's something that we see every year. It's not every year we see lots more red in the fall than we do by the end of the year. And I think what people need to remember is that the DIBELS is actually telling us that it's really talking about how is this student going to progress towards end of the year goals. And so we need to keep in mind that we really can't make determinations until end of the year and have they made enough progress. That doesn't mean we don't intervene on our students when they need to. But yes, at the beginning of the year, the parents will probably see more yellows and reds on the reports as opposed to greens and blues, which they may see later in the year.
Right.
There are other reasons why they may not do well on the test. First of all, it's timed. And sometimes our younger friends need a little extra processing time. Yeah. And also the teacher has an iPad and a timer, and that can be distracting for some students as well. So there are multiple reasons why students may be distracted or have some scores that maybe don't even reflect their academic profile.
So I know we're going to be sending an intro letter to parents before they receive this report. So if I'm a parent and I see all of a sudden that I have some yellow and reds, I shouldn't be alarmed, because again, right, I just want to, from what I understand, this is a baseline assessment. Right. It really is to measure where our students are beginning and where they're going to progress. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are more concerned about the growth and progress from where they start to where they end than we are about what this initial report looks like. I think we don't want parents to be afraid or scared. It doesn't mean that there is an academic issue with anybody. It just means that we need some exposure to the curriculum, and we need to get used to taking the test, because sometimes the directions and tasks can be confusing. So we really want students to be able to understand what we're trying to do before we make some decisions. So children who have reds will be progress monitored in November after some exposure to kindergarten curriculum, and then the determination by the team is made about whether the student needs intervention or not. Sometimes interventions for the yellow students who are still in the yellow areas can actually happen in the classroom, because kindergarten classrooms have an instructional assistant in there. So there's always 2 teachers in the room. And there's a separate WIN block where we do these interventions. We call it What I Need. And during that time, there's no new learning. So if students do need to come out for intervention, there's no new learning happening in the classroom at that time. Parents don't have to be worried that they're missing something in the classroom.
And you've seen this, correct? Like, especially with our students who are learning how to read, right? That they progress. And not every student, I think, begins in the same place, right? But they grow. And then there are different levels in which they do grow. Is that something you've seen over the years?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So we definitely see that students at the beginning of the year tend to be lower because they haven't been exposed to curriculum. We see a huge development and progressive growth in the February, March, April time of the year.
Okay.
That's really where we see. So while there'll be some progress from September to the January assessment, the middle of the year benchmark, the real growth really happens towards the end of the year for kindergartners, where they're starting their small group reading. They've had exposure to Heggerty and Foundations for long enough. They've gone through all the letters and foundations, so now they're able to tap and blend their words. Their writing starts to improve. Their confidence builds because they're reading not just decodables, but they're actually able to read some real trade book type texts as well.
Well, thank you so much. And then for you other parents, just so that you guys are aware, I know that Ms. Sacco, at some point in time, she's going to be reaching out to all of you in the very near future. You will be receiving a letter, especially for kindergarten parents, about how your child did on the DIBELS report or the DIBELS assessment, and you'll learn a little bit more about this in this letter. But please don't be alarmed if you do see some red and yellows. That's number 1. And then number 2, I know that Ms. Sacco, in working with the elementary principals, will be offering a literacy night in which she'll be explaining a little bit more about what the reading program consists of, especially at the elementary level, and how parents or caregivers can assist in the process of helping to ensure that reading is beyond the classroom and there is a love for reading. Oh, and on one last note, I just wanted to say I loved walking in yesterday in your book group. Can you tell me a little bit about your book group? Because wow, what a great professional development learning for everyone across this district.
Yeah, it's my favorite day of the month is when we have adult book group. We base the adult book group on a text that's pedagogy. So this year is Disrupting Thinking by Kayleen Beers and Robert Prost. And so we have to read that book, but then it's a book group that people just choose books that they want to read. And the best thing about it is kindergarten through 12th grade teachers, so it's a wide variety of teachers and representation. We have people from every school, and even pre-K up. And also, we learn so much about each other as readers, and I think that my job is to ensure that what we do in that group, they bring back to their classrooms and their schools and their students. So book choice is a huge variable in students loving to read. And so as much as possible, we want to give students choice about what they're reading every day and for their independent reading books and things like that. So I give my adult book group teachers choice. Yeah. And it is fun, and it's always a great group. And this year we have some I call them like my returning customers, and then we have some new friends every year, and every year it's a great group. So
yeah, it was just so wonderful to walk into that book group and listen to all the discussions that were occurring, and I also saw some administrators there. So what I loved about this particular book group is that we continue to bring the joy of reading and the importance of reading to our staff members, and I love how you emulate that and you provide this professional development, and I know that you've been doing this for years, and that these books I know really resonate when I speak to the members who have been in your book group, and they've really enjoyed it. So I just want to thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, and I just
besides working with you, that's actually my favorite thing. Sometimes I ask Dr. Conti if I can go back and just work with kids every day.
But thank you so much for your time.
Of course,
and
my pleasure.
I just wanted to say thank you guys for joining us today for the first episode of Journey to C.A.R.E.S with Dr. Lisa Chen. I hope to be able to bring you some more of our speakers and also other things that are occurring in our wonderful world of curriculum instruction and assessment so that you become familiar with what I see every day. It's really fun what I do, and I just would love for you to learn a little bit more about it, to see how we're impacting student learning, student choice, and student engagement here at Burlington Public Schools. So thank you so much for joining us today. And again, thank you, Renee Sacco. She's our Director of Literacy. She is wonderful. You ever get a chance, you can always email her, ask her questions about our reading program. Just so happy to have you with us today.
Thank you,
Renee.
Thanks for having me.